It's Thursday, the 24th of October. Kia ora, hello, I'm Philip Duncan. Thank you for joining us as we take a look at the long weekend weather, a new update because of the severe weather risks going into the weekend. Most of the severe weather does look to be around the South Island. Both sides do, not just the west coast where the heavy rain is. That rain could spill over to the east coast as low pressure forms right over the top of the island, and then we've got some strong to severe gale winds in the mix too. And the North Island also has some severe weather risks. So let's get into it with the latest animated wind map. Here is the high pressure zone, still stretching up past the tropical islands and down over parts of New Zealand. There's also this colder southerly that's just arrived in Tasmania and Victoria and moving up the New South Wales coastline. That colder change is heading towards New Zealand. And if you live in Southland and Otago, you're going to notice that temperature drop coming through overnight Friday and into Saturday. Places like Gore going from 20 degrees today to a maximum of about 8 on Saturday. So let's have a look and see what is happening with the rainfall. It starts off on the west coast, but look how it spreads over to the eastern side as we go through the next 48 hours from 9 o'clock this evening through till 9 p.m. on Saturday. So what you're seeing there is basically in the darker purple shading through some of the mountains here, over 175, 250 millimetres of rain. That's why MetService have got warnings out for rain across the western side. But look at the purple shading here over towards Canterbury, still brings you into the 75, 100, 125 millimetre area. This is because low pressure is forming over the top of the South Island and will drive in some airflows out from the east for a time. So rainfall is heaviest around the hills and ranges. The further eastward you go around Banks Peninsula, perhaps around 30 or 40 millimetres, and Banks Peninsula does need the rain. In the North Island, Hawke's Bay also needs rain, but you're not going to get very much by the looks of it, only a couple of millimetres if you're lucky. Other areas here in the red shading and perhaps around Mount Taranaki, that's where you're getting anywhere between 30 and maybe 80 millimetres with those higher totals up in the mountains and ranges. So keep an eye on those MetService warnings and watches. There are a few of them out at the moment. Here's how we look with the next 24 hours forecast satellite imagery. You can see here the rain on the west coast, heaviest in the gold. Now, you know when a wave crashes on the beach, it goes all the way up and then it comes back down again. Well, you have a look and see what happens here. You're going to see this front move up towards the North Island, then it kind of falls apart, and then it comes back again. And that coming back motion is the new low pressure zone that is forming out in the Tasman Sea. So let me just show you what I'm talking about. Moves northwards, drops back southwards. So by tomorrow night, you've got rain returning over the South Island. Airflows mostly northerly for the top of the country, but there is a southerly in the southern part, and that is that colder change arriving for you as you go in towards tomorrow night. This is a bigger picture version of what I just showed you, and this goes for 48 hours, not 24. This is starting overnight tonight. So you can see that heavy rain. Now you'll see it go northwards as we go into Friday, and then on Saturday there is that low, and by the time we get into the very early hours of Sunday morning, the low is right over the top like a pair of goggles sitting over the top of the South Island. Severe weather risks look to actually ease overnight Saturday going into Sunday. The windiest weather gets pushed southwards, but there's still this line of heavy rain or thunderstorms that could be affecting the top of the North Island, and we've still got some rain here around the lower part of the North Island as well. So this low is complicated. Most of the severe weather risks are across Friday and Saturday as that low deepens. So let me explain it again. Here we are, lunchtime Friday, the low pressure zones out here in the Tasman forming with that southerly that's just come into Australia. On the other side, the northerlies come down, so it's like a spinning top. Southerlies one side, northerlies on the other. Perfect recipe to deepen that low and have it start to spin. You've got the rain here in the middle of the country. That's that wave that goes up and then starts to go back again. And then at the other end of New Zealand, this is lunchtime tomorrow, you can see that southerly change coming into Southland and Fiordland. Just lastly, the eastern side of the North Island still getting that subtropical windy nor'wester, which is why your temperatures again tomorrow go up into the mid-20s. Some areas might go higher than 25, but at the other end of the country, you're seeing those 14s and 16s coming in. Worth noting, this is the Friday temperature map. The Saturday one has single-digit temperatures as the maximums in some areas. So warmest weather on Friday, northern and eastern parts of the North Island and the eastern side of the South Island. Now the weather gets messy on Saturday. This is when the low comes in and it's still deepening, it's still forming. There are severe weather risks for heavy rain on the west coast. for the northwestern and northern parts of the South Island, then also spilling over around into Canterbury. It's not just coming over from the west, you've got low pressure forming over here in the east as well. So that's going to create new rain clouds that form over on the eastern side. And then on top of all of that, windy weather going through the Southern Alps. Severe gales are expected. They could blow down trees, could be power cuts as those winds really ramp up right down the South Island, exiting out there around the western side of Southland and Fiordland. And then the top of New Zealand, there is that band of rain coming through with a cold front, or sort of a cold front. It's not going to be very cold behind it. And this could spark a few heavy areas of rain, as you see here, and that might also produce some thunderstorms. Sunday, that front goes out to sea. So now it's kind of falling apart as it runs into the back of the high pressure zone. Low pressure parked on either side of the South Island, that stretches the energy out, reduces the chance of the windy weather. Still got westerlies blowing over the North Island. That's why the east is dry again. So the rain clouds clear up around Canterbury quite quickly. There could be some heavy rain. It's still not 100% locked in. At the time we recorded this, there was no warning from MetService for it. They'd had a watch out, which they had removed by the time we recorded this, but still worth keeping an eye on around Canterbury. If that rain really does set in, you could be seeing some rain warnings issued over there. But the good news is, from a severe weather point of view at least, it clears up very quickly on Sunday, but the rain does remain over on the western side. And the further you go up the North Island, the less likely you are to have showers. There's still a few shower risks around the western side, around Auckland, Waikato, Northland, but not as much as you get around Taranaki or further down around western areas. And it stays like that into Labor Day Monday. Now we've got low pressure mostly out to the east of the South Island, cold southerly winds feeding into the southern half of the South Island, snow back on the hills and ranges again, and in the North Island, westerly winds blowing through. The further north you go, the warmer it is because your airflow is still coming out from around Queensland. But the further down the country you go, the cooler that airflow is. And once more, eastern parts of the North Island are mainly dry, but there might still be a few showers around Canterbury. Tuesday of next week, the low moves further away from us, but we've still got the southerly flow behind it. High pressure to the north, windiest weather offshore from Otago Peninsula, a few showers around. And our final map for Wednesday, the big picture, shows you some low pressure out here in the Tasman Sea. So that may be there to kick off November for us, or Halloween next Thursday. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. But this is high pressure elsewhere around New Zealand, stretching out to this big high south of Perth, and an even bigger high out over the Indian Ocean. The Southern Ocean is still quite stormy, not as stormy as it's been, but a lot of windy westerlies. So those spring windy westerlies are now south of the country, but they might come back again for some places as we go through next week. That is all from me. Now, Friday, we weren't sure if we were going to make a video. We'd actually planned to have an extra long weekend, but now with this severe weather around the South Island, probably will do another update for you on Friday. If we don't, you know why, but we are planning to do at this stage another update. If we don't, that means that the severe weather risks around the country and around the South Island have tapered down and dropped down a wee bit. So if we don't see you tomorrow, have a great long weekend. Otherwise, we may see you with a Friday update. Have a great Labour weekend.